Good
Good morning,
morning.
Sia.
Good morning. How are you, Mike?
Good, how are you?
Good, good, good. Thank you. Joe emailed me.
Hey, Sia. Hey, Michael.
Oh, good morning. I just got an email from you, my friend.
Yeah, I just was checking in with you just to make sure you were all set.
No, I'm not. That's it. I'm canceling.
Well, that's right. I could do my stand-up routine for the next the next hour. So
Joe, I tend to talk fast. It may finish before 9 o'clock. Is that okay, or do you want me to drag it on? What do you want me to do?
Wait, sorry, what was that again? It cut out.
Yeah, I said I usually talk fast, so if I may finish before 9. Is that okay, or should I drag it on, or what do you want?
No, if you finish before 9, actually yesterday, what happened was we had a great discussion that happened afterwards. People commenting, asking really like good questions on YouTube and in the live session discussion. And so while you were presenting, I'm gonna go through and organize all the questions, and then we can have a discussion afterwards.
Okay, Joe, do me a favor. Send me a link of the YouTube link. I'm sure it's in Slack, but email it.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. Yep.
Yeah, and then I saw there was a lot of questions about labs. I think everybody's waiting for me.
They definitely are. Yep.
Yeah, you know what, Joe? I saw a lot of questions regarding all the things that we talked about, regarding networking and power, and those poor guys have lots of concerns.
Yeah, what I think is interesting, because I started consolidating that into a thread, and I have a feeling it's going to be another big topic today after your presentation. And so what's interesting though is that it's people are starting to think about what they need to advocate for. And so I think that's one positive outcome, I think, of some of the discussions so far. So
right. So I'm going to send you do you want my PowerPoint presentation too, just in case you need to? I'll send it to you.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yep. Here, and let me send you the link, the YouTube link. Okay.
And the other thing was that I'm going to go a little bit more into detail on my team and what we do at the beginning, because that's a key to us to set up to support and deliver, the online, what we do technically for online support, right?
Right,
so, right. Before I go fully into the online and what we did, is that I want to describe a little bit more detail about my team and how we reconfigured it and configured it about 10 years ago to what it is today.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, that's awesome.
Because I would recommend that to them up. One of my guys went from WPI to Northeastern, so he's revamping Northeastern's research computing team to be like us, right?
Wow. Yeah.
So, and I think they would benefit from that in in other places too, so not blowing my own horn, so.
Yeah, that's great. I'm just going to step away for 1 second, and then I'll be right back, and then I'll post the YouTube link. We'll wait a couple seconds to see people show up, and then I'll get started with the intro.
Yeah. And then,
right.
Okay, and then I'll share my screen. Mike, lots of meetings, huh? Not lots of Zoom meetings. I think I'm in more Zoom meetings than I was in real meetings.
Yeah, it used to be that we had to have time to walk between meetings, but now there's no requirement for that. So we'll just fill, right? Work expands to fill available time. Right.
The only thing I can do now, Mike, is I can put this on the freeze and take bathroom breaks if I need to.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
Oh, I know it's I got back-to-back Zoom meetings until 4 o'clock this afternoon, right through lunch. And it's supposed to be summer,
Yeah, I have to scoot at 9 myself. I have a student who needs like office hours. I'm teaching one of the summer courses.
Oh, which one?
Financial literacy.
Oh, I could use that.
All right. So I posted the YouTube link.
Yeah, I called that up, Joe, but I get a feedback loop when I do it. So
Yeah.
I backed out of it right away. I thought, oh boy, nobody needs this.
Yeah, you can, if you mute YouTube, you can follow along without it causing any of the feedback.
Mm.
And then I'm gonna repost.
Joe, I mentioned to Sia too that I have to go by 9 because I have a student for kind of office hours for my summer class. So.
Oh, okay, all right. Oops. We're almost there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we got 27 people who are watching. We might just give it a few more minutes for people to find the link and log on. But actually, Sia, let me set you up so you can share your screen.
Okay. Yeah, I got to share it with sound because I'm playing some videos, you know, so.
Okay. We ran into a problem with Kate yesterday. When she was playing the videos, she couldn't actually hear it, but we could hear it, and it was really loud. So if I'll keep the chat open. If we run into a similar issue, like that you're just unaware that the sound is playing, I'll just I'll post it in the chat and
Okay.
let you know.
Yeah, let me know, and you know, I'll if you need me, whatever you need me to do.
Yeah, great. Well, this is fine. Why don't we get started? We're 2 minutes past the hour, so I'm just going to do like 10. You know, it's not going to be 10 minutes, but a few minutes of sort of housekeeping, and then we'll get started. So, all right. All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to day 3. Really excited about the program that we have today. Sia Najafi is going to be talking about, well, a number of things all related to WPI's tech infrastructure. So we're really lucky to have him. And as we did yesterday and the day before, I will be monitoring both the YouTube channel and our Slack channels for your questions and comments, compiling them, and then we'll have a really lively discussion after Sia's presentation for about an hour or so is what we're shooting for. Before we get started, though, I just want to walk through some changes because I think the normal for this session, for all of you, the session experience, is that you wake up in the morning and you find that I've made a lot of structural changes. Well, it's in part, it's me taking an agile mindset to product and service development and trying to adapt it to make it easier for you to use based on some of the issues that you're confronting. Actually, and the suggestions that you've had. Some of these changes that I made overnight actually came from all of you. So I really appreciate to those of you who reached out to give me suggestions on things that can make it easier for you to have a better experience. So let's just go over them really quickly. I'm going to share my screen. So what you'll notice here is that it's the structure of the channels. So there is still the announcements channel. I created 2 channels for the previous day's video and slides. And I actually am going to need your cooperation on this. I'm unable to limit you. I'm unable to prohibit you from posting within channels. So I really need you to cooperate. Otherwise, we're going to run into the same problem that we had on the other channels, which is that the content gets buried within the comments. So I posted day 1 and the day 1 video and slides, day 2 and the day 2 video and slides. And after today's presentation, I'll create a new channel and post it in the day 3 video and slides. We still have, oh, and to that point, if you find that you don't have access to the channel, just contact me and I'll give you access. Unfortunately, Slack's interface makes it a little challenging to identify when it's small numbers of people, makes it challenging to find those of you who don't have access to particular channels. We still have the general to say hello and carry on conversations about anything. We have the help desk where you can ask for troubleshooting, any types of issues related to logistics and Slack and otherwise. And then here created a live session link, which is where I just posted this live session. Just a note about that is that once we finish and are no longer live, I'm going to delete that link and I will add that video, the recorded video and the documents to the day 3 video and slides. And then we have session discussions. And so that's really where we want all the dialogue to take place, that and directly on the YouTube, in the YouTube channel. So please feel free, ask questions, have comments. What you'll notice is that I spent quite a bit of time yesterday evening, in fact, consolidating your questions and comments, and I've listed them all here. If you scroll through during the session or afterwards, please feel free to reply to the thread and then comment down below to add your thoughts, additional questions to these questions that have emerged. I'm also going to use some of these to engage with Sia during our question and answer, and I'll also be compiling them, the new ones that arise.
Joe, this
Yes.
is Terry. I'm
Hey,
wondering
Terry.
if you'd like to talk about the search feature within Slack, that might help. If people have questions even before they post them, they might want to see if it's already been posted and maybe even answered.
Yeah, thanks, Carrie. So if you're using the desktop version of this, you'll scroll up to the top and you'll see that there's search. So right here, search WPI, for the online training program. And then you simply start typing what it is that you're looking for. Sorry, there's a lag. So question, right? So into the question, and then it'll return those search results. So whatever it is that you're looking for, if you go up to the search bar, type in your search, it'll return results that you'll be able to make it easier to find. And so yeah, thanks, Carrie, for pointing that out. I use it all the time. It's a feature that makes it easy to navigate Slack, in addition to the ways in which that we've organized it. So thanks, Carrie. Are there any other bits of logistics type information that we need to pass on?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think about in terms of maneuvering through Slack. I know that it's a new platform for many of you. It's new for me as well. So that's why I'm learning as we go. And Joe's been great about sharing knowledge and really being adaptive as needed. And so I'm not always accustomed to the search feature, which is why it was fresh in my mind, right? Because I do see that there are questions that are being asked by multiple people. So they're good questions because other people are asking them too. But I think it's about getting in the mindset of thinking, gee, I wonder if this has been asked and if I can find the information. And then because part of what Joe has been trying to work around is the fact that we have so much, the ability now for 1,300 people to all add as part of the collaborative process, right? Which is great. We want you to use that. But if we can focus on new material as opposed to repeating the old material, that would be even more effective. So, if I see a lot of questions about when are we going to start, where are the videos, so there are some key words in there that you could search. I know it takes a little bit of getting used to trying to, you have to know where to look in order to find things. So the search piece will help. So
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And we'll add one thing to it that I think some people are maybe not accustomed to, is that content is found by scrolling up. So this thread is going to be, as things get added, content is found scrolling up through the channel. And so for example, if you might have a question about something, and there's a good chance that it already has been asked. And that's the big reason that I've been consolidating things into these individual posts around questions and comments. So there's a good chance if you have a question, there's a good chance it's been asked and answered. So there are multiple ways of finding it. One is through the search, which is probably the easiest way to do it. And then the other is to scroll through what has already been posted.
And then the other thing I wanted to point out, Joe, some of your messages, not all of them, but many of them have the like a yellow background as opposed to the white background. Are those the pinned messages? Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, so some of the things that I've done in Slack to draw your attention to those messages is that there's a feature called pinning, and essentially I'm doing it to catch your eye. So if
Maybe
it's something,
you can show your screen if you want to share your screen. And
yeah, I can.
People.
Yeah,
that might
sure.
Be helpful.
Sure.
So not only are we learning the content about what we could teach about online training, but we're really learning live what this just one of the tools is like. And this is a good experience because it's what your students and faculty will be going through.
Yeah, and to be clear, so tomorrow's session, we're actually going to cover several cases of how to teach with Slack, which is not an endorsement or suggestion that everyone uses it. It's just you'll get to see some of the features and ways in which I've used it and colleagues have used it to teach. But here is an example of what we mean by pinning. So you can see how this is white and this is a different color.
Pinned right there.
The point was that this is by me, and it's something that I think you should have your attention on. There are other posts that I haven't pinned because I think they're temporary, but these are sort of more permanent types of posts that I want to draw your eye to. So
Joe, when you pin it, it says pinned by you above your name there. And then
it'll say pinned by Joe, yeah.
Yeah, and then it will be highlighted in yellow, but it doesn't pin it to the top of the page or any. It's not a physical placement in the scrolling. It stays where it is. It's not like
it stays where it is. It doesn't filter to the top. No.
Okay. So it's good for people to know. So if you could look, anything that you see yellow like that would be important for you to draw your attention to.
Yeah, great.
Thank you.
I think there's one more bit of logistics that we probably should say. So we're running out of the ability to enroll new people into this week's session. It's a limitation of our license with it's a free license with Slack, and so personally I'm honored that we're breaking it. So it feels good to be so successful that we've busted the limit on the free license. But with that said, we're actually running the session again next week. And so I know that a number of you have already reached out to me to ask about sending invitations to your colleagues and I'll get them enrolled for this week. We'll be sending out an invitation for you to sign up and get registered for your colleagues to sign up and get registered for another session of this exact program next week. And we'll take care of that shortly and get all of them enrolled. So thanks for that interest, the continued interest of, well, you and your colleagues. Carrie, that should about do it, right? I think that was the last.
Yeah, I think we covered some good territory, and things will continue to come up and we'll continue to address them. And this is all part of the learning.
Yeah.
You're seeing it in real time.
Well, I'm having a blast with this. So both from the perspective of trying to design a learning resource with agility, but using agile methods, and doing so with at this scale, and also addressing this particular content area, how to help Nigerian universities get online. So I know from my perspective, it's been an incredibly worthwhile, enriching experience, and I really hope that's the same for all of you out there. So I guess, without further ado, let me turn this over to you, Sia, and let you get started on today's session.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Good to see you this morning. I mean, morning in Eastern Time, United States. I'm sure it's afternoon in Africa. Let me just make sure that sharing correctly here. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about academic and research computing at WPI and how we went, online and what we're doing about several different subjects. I'm Sia Najafi. I'm the Executive Director, Academic and Research Computing at WPI. I'm also a WPI grad. I won't tell you how many decades ago I graduated because that would, be a little bit telling, but it was many years ago. I got my bachelor and master's at WPI in mechanical engineering, and I left. And then when I came back from my PhD, that's when they somehow tucked me into information technology division. I don't know how that happened, but I'm glad it did. So let me tell you a little bit more about our team first, because the composition of the team and what they do has proven to be very important into how we support WPI and students and faculty, and how we were able to help in several different areas in going online. All right, so the teams, this is the team that you can see in academic and research computing. As you can see, the team is consisted of scientists, and they are in different areas, different domain expertise, mechanical engineering, computer science, physics, robotics. And I also have 2 teaching assistants, TAs, who are also PhD candidates who help out with the whole, endeavor that we are trying to do for WPI. Now you see what's different than usually an IT organization. Our academic and research computing are part of central IT at WPI. Let me tell you, WPI is pretty much centralized for IT. A lot of universities, if you're, the IT could be part of, engineering, School of Engineering, a School of Arts and Sciences. And if you're in one or the other, you may have access to different things. At WPI, because we are centralized, we service everybody, right? So regardless of what school you're in, if you're in no school, your arts and humanities, your engineering, your science, you have access to all the resources. There's nothing that's not available to you, right? And we picked our team. I changed the team about 10 years ago to not be, the usual programmers and sysadmins, but scientists. And the reason was that it's much easier to help student faculty when the people who's helping them understand the science versus just the software or the programming, right? Because so all these people, first of all, are scientists, and then IT folks second, because I can teach them information technology, but I can't teach them chemistry, right? So that's worked out really well for WPI, and it's been a really good design. So what our team does, so everything we do is based on scientific and engineering skills, connecting with technology, right? So when the students come to us and go, okay, I want to use this software, it says, okay, first explain to us what your problem is. Because a lot of times we notice students or faculty pick one very, complex software, start using it for months, and then they figure out it's a wrong thing, right? So they wasted a lot of time, they wasted a lot of resources, and we're trying to prevent that from happening for the faculty and students. So as I said, we got uniform campus support. We're not tied to schools, department, institutes. Everything is available to everybody, and there's no charge to anyone for our services. And WPI, is a project-based school, and undergraduate students have to do a major qualifying project, which basically is an undergraduate research project. So what you notice at WPI in a lot of the research labs is that you see students who are undergraduate students, masters and PhD all working together albeit at different areas, it's a beginner, and mentorship goes downhill. And that's been a really, beneficial to our undergraduate program and undergraduate students. And we support all of that, right? We support all the hardware, all the software, all the training, all the consulting. The students come to us, with all kinds of questions regarding their undergraduate research programs, their master's thesis, their PhD thesis, and we set up, meetings and consulting with all of that. Software hardware agnostic. We don't care about, I've gone my time at WPI over 30 years supporting, all different flavors of Unix to Windows to Macs. And now we are big into cloud computing, right? So for us, the platform doesn't matter. What we deal with is in knowledge, right? Because, platforms change, our resources could move into the cloud. If you look at the Amazon cloud, the Google cloud, the Microsoft cloud, they offer every IT service that you can imagine. But one thing they can't give you is the knowledge and support. Or if they do, it's at very exuberant price, okay? So that's what we try to do for WPI, is to provide student and faculty with the knowledge. So the team can also be, rate of change is very rapid, right? And is gaining steam, and things are changing at a much faster rate. So we designed the team to also be able to change, with a multidisciplinary team. And if the WPI suddenly decides to change directions in a research area or to go online or do whatever, then we are agile enough to be able to support, WPI's direction. So also one of the things that we noticed is that the way we set up the team and the resources that we provide to all the students and faculty, all the departments, all the institutes, all the schools, is that it provides a very competitive edge in recruiting faculty, because a lot of universities don't have these centralized services, or if they do, they charge for it. At WPI, we do not charge for any of these services, right? And once they come in, we'll help them set up so all the new faculty get a really advantage, like a few 6 months or a year advantage over their other colleagues in other universities, and so they can publish faster, do their research quicker, and getting a research grants, all those, whatever time you have, the time you can save, the better off you are. All right, so let's look at the services that we offer quickly. Like most academic and research computing center, of course, we have the high performance computing center here, and it's a few of the very big, large clusters of thousands of CPUs and GPUs, and and that's I'll go into the details of that a little bit later on, but that's accessible to for both teaching and research, right? And then of course with that, it's we have a data explosion in the world, and we have enterprise tiered storage. That means that we have petabytes of storage that's backed up regularly and is available to student and faculty, and that one is at no charge up to a certain limit. We support applications, code development, software, analyzing data, and these are for people who do computational work. For people who do research, we're using they have labs and instruments. We help them set up their instruments. We the data transfers, data analytics, systems integration. The team does all of that. And one of the most important thing, the one that really helped us going online, was the application training, classroom support. So what happens is that we have a slew of software that I will show you next, and we go into we have from MATLAB to MathCAD. The list is endless, and we have training sessions for these courses, and and then after that, students come to us asking about it, and that has proven to be very valuable. And also in my area, that usually is not associated with academic research computing, but we adopted it because it helps expose the students to new technologies. The whole thing has been about giving our students an edge in the workforce, in competing with other students, either in the United States or even globally, right? So we expose them to technologies like 3D modeling, rapid prototyping. We have all kinds of, machines on campus that, students can go and make products using different materials. Can do anything from metal to different kinds of plastics, complex items they make to use in, coursework or their thesis, whatever the project may be. So, okay, WPI going fully online. WPI went from, roughly 20% fully online in a span of 2 weeks. I call it 2 weeks from hell. So you noticed that my colleague Kate Beveridge and I, roughly had to change and expand our resources in a span of 2 weeks to suddenly, go supporting, thousands of students on campus to suddenly all of them off campus, right? And we weren't sure if it's going to succeed, right? With the first 3 days, everybody was crossing their fingers and hoping that everything holds up, including the internet, right? So, and most faculty had never taught fully online, and most students had never taken a course fully online. And the success was, 100% because of the hard work of the student and faculty. What we did in IT, we extended our services, we expanded, we did a lot of things, but, it wasn't nothing, unusual. It was mostly, it's all on students and faculty. And one thing we have noticed, because we've done this for a while now, faculty and students still want overwhelmingly to be on campus and experience, but the online has proven to be invaluable. And whatever our new normal is, the online is not going away, right? So the online is here to stay, and it's going to expand, and it's going to be part of, our going forward. So the areas that I was concerned with was, how do we support this thing? When we do all our classes and support everything, majority of it was in one-to-one meetings, in-person meetings, right? And how do we extend that to be online? Then the issue was WPI is an engineering school, heavily into science and engineering, and and we have computer labs with hundreds of software on them everywhere on campus, right? So how do we suddenly make all those things available to students that are remote now, right? Everything from academic software. How do we make it remotely accessible? Changing our licensing structure. What about the network bandwidth? What about the time zones? Because now students could be spread across the globe in all kinds of different time zones. How do we make sure that everybody has access at the right time? Then one of the biggest questions, the biggest question that I think every university struggles with is that what happens with the physical labs, right? Academic labs, chemistry, physics, biology, electrical and computer engineering, mechanical engineering. We are heavily lab-based. Our motto at WPI is both, theory and practice. So it's very hands-on, right? And that's what we pride ourselves on, is that we give the students a really good hands-on experience. So that proved a little bit challenging. High-performance computing, how does being remote affect that? So I'll go through a little bit of each one. And this was probably our most important one to supporting your students. The scientific help desk, normal help desk is, in IT, usually jargon is that you support the ticket, okay, my password expired, I don't have access to this, A scientific help desk is different, is that, faculty, I get a lot of questions like, oh, I have a problem with MATLAB. Okay, then they get sent to us with the scientific help desk. And we notice a lot of times is not the problem with the software, but it's not MATLAB, but the students have forgotten math. So what we do is we help them through it versus the faculty having to go through all of that, right? And basically that saves faculty, and then the students have additional resources to come to beside their faculty and the teaching assistant. So there's a big group of people who can really help them with their, projects and homework. And normally they might be stymied at, especially in an online environment. So we are intimately now into the, the curriculum of WPI. We work with faculty and TAs to develop assignments and laboratories using different software, and sometimes we design even the lab experiments for them, and, we can go, as I said, we have the technical knowledge to go into the scientific details of every project and help the faculty design the right tools to start working on the project. and some of my staff are also teaching classes, like when it comes to design, especially in mechanical engineering, into CAD design, advanced design courses. A lot of times they come to us from civil engineering, from biomedical engineering, from mechanical engineering, and my staff also teach some of those courses. And a lot of these courses are voluntary by students. As students, you normally do not take any additional burden of trying to learn something because they're so busy. But these sort of resources have proven to be so valuable that the students volunteered, and they came and took 4 hours of training when it wasn't, nobody forced them to, right? We served over 1,600 students, unique count, and a lot of them took, and we had multiple sessions, multiple courses that I can show you, some of the courses that we do support are like MATLAB, MathCAD, Mathematica, Maple. So what we do, we support all the hardware and labs. Then we get all the software. I coordinate all of WPI software, academic software, right? I negotiate all the vendors, and then we make them available through the computer labs and all the other servers and everything else to all the students. And then we provide support and training for all of that, right? So if you go in there and you say, and these software are getting more complex every time, right? And it's very cumbersome for somebody who doesn't know, where to start out to learn the software. So they attend, there's 2-hour beginner sessions, we have advanced sessions, and then we have customized sessions. Some faculty come to us and say, okay, I'm teaching this electrical computer engineering course, and I need to use MATLAB to do Sigma analysis. So instead of the faculty teaching that in the classroom and wasting an hour of the class, they can assign it outside. We do the teaching, and then the faculty can concentrate on science in the classroom, right? So these are the, some of the, we have over 200 applications, but these are the most, common ones that we always ask on, and we provide continuous support. So the online. So once we had a decent amount of online videos and things for students to do, but students always preferred to come in person and ask questions in person. That changed when we went fully online. So what we did was we also changed, and we started recording all our videos for everything that we had done into a large video library format of support materials, right? And supports from levels of beginners to advanced. We are continuously updating and adding stuff as the need arises. Faculty and students request more, and so we go in the direction that the faculty and students request. And as my colleague Kate Beveridge mentioned yesterday, all those videos reside on our learning management system, which is Canvas, and at any time it's always open to all of WPI community, right? They don't have to register for it. They always, anybody who wants it can go and listen or see these videos and take the instructions. So I'm going to show you a little video that describes it more. This is one of my TAs that's speaking. It's Maya. She's very good.
WPI courses are hosted on Canvas, which is a web environment designed to facilitate course delivery both in class and online teaching. Canvas provides us a solution to share information and deliver courses in a unified package. As you can see, we are using it to centralize the resources provided by ARC, which include software training, high-performance computing, rapid prototyping, and hosting virtual machines. Canvas allows us to communicate directly with the enrolled students. Communications include campus-wide announcements, individual messages, and scheduling consultations. Here, we will focus on software training. We offer self-paced courses to help researchers get familiar with the technical tools. We offer a variety of courses from programming languages such as Python and MATLAB to application-specific software such as COMSOL and ANSYS. Our current list of the courses, also called modules, that are available for immediate use are Abacus, ANSYS and Fluent, CES EduPack, COMSOL, LabVIEW, Mathematica, MathCAD, MATLAB, Parallel and Cluster Computing, and Python. We are actively trying to add more software and computation tutorials to our databases. It must be noted that the link to each module could be added to other WPI courses as supplementary materials. The courses follow two formats: the online crash course format and the supplementary format. To illustrate, we will consider the two MATLAB modules. For MATLAB online crash course, the course materials are presented as self-contained asynchronous lessons. The lessons are organized from introductory to advanced topics. For each topic, we include written material, video lectures, and in-video exercises. Each topic concludes with quizzes to provide a means of self-evaluation. The quizzes help to determine the topics to be reviewed. In the MATLAB supplementary format, we provide reference documentations, class-specific information. For example, Mechanical Engineering course 4322 and Robotics Engineering course 3001 each have specific MATLAB modules dedicated to them. And other online resources are also included to form a compendium on MATLAB.
Okay, and then there's from there it goes into extensive coverage of the different videos that we can be taking a look at. Okay, so virtual computer labs. So as when we went online, and then suddenly our computer labs were not accessible by students. So what did we do? There were several different solutions. We already had some of them, but we had to greatly expand them. One was that our Windows terminal servers. Now, Windows terminal servers are basically giant servers that are sitting in our server room, and they're accessible using from PCs, Macs, or Linux, using the remote desktop connection to connect to these windows, right? Now, these there's for the labs, we dedicated, my team, we had like 20 of these, more than 20 of these servers, and they're very powerful servers. They're like, each one of them has got at least 40 CPUs and over 400 gig of RAM and lots of disk space. And it's got most of the applications that we run in the labs, installed on them. And then the students can use them, remotely. Then all our storage and home directories are mapped to these machines. So all the files that you own, everything is accessible to these remote terminal servers, right? Now, the good thing is these terminal servers, these powerful machines and all the storage are sitting in our server rooms. They're protected. They never go down. And the students can connect to them. It requires little bandwidth because it's just a pixel refresh. You can connect them from your MacBook, from your Chromebook, or anything that basically just has a remote desktop, because no amount of computing is done on your personal computer. Everything is done on these servers, right? And if the connection gets disconnected, or you suddenly power off your laptop or desktop, and then you power back up and you log in, you retain your session, right? The session hasn't gone away, right? If you had MATLAB or you had Word and PowerPoint running, it would still be there. I'll show that to you in a second. When we went online, middle of our last semester, we had about 1,500 students just connecting to these machines to do their homework. I can quickly demonstrate and log in and show you one of the machines. And you could do this I'm doing this from my laptop at home. Now, if only I can remember my password. All right, so what you see on your screen is actually a server. It's not your PC, but it looks exactly like a PC, right? And I'm sure you have seen it before, but as you can see, all these applications are installed from MATLAB to Maple to SolidWorks to all these different software that we have students have access to. I can just show you, for example, that currently these many users have, just connected to this one server right now, and they disconnected the session, and but they're still logged in. Their sessions are running. I can show it to you. For example, if I go to performance, and then I disconnect my session. Okay, I just disconnected my session. It's gone, right? But if I, like if I lost network connection or my computer shut down, if I go back, you notice I retain the same screen. So no work is lost, which is a big thing. If you're working remotely and you're at the mercy of the network bandwidth or your battery running out or any kind of things, it's important that you don't lose work, right? And this is it. And majority of the applications are installed here. And, I can even give you a bigger list of all these applications, from ANSYS to Console to Abacus. The list is endless. All the IBM stuff, Microsoft, Maple, National Instruments, LabVIEW. Okay, I don't want to bore you with details, but it's all here. I'm going to disconnect again. So that proved to be a real benefit to all of our students, because otherwise because we have powerful computer labs, but now that you're home, you're at the mercy of what technology you have at home, right? Both computing and network. So the other thing we did was the terminal servers are nice for running normal applications, but applications that require heavy graphics, right? That are very graphic intensive, like if you're doing heavy CAD packages, or like SolidWorks or Creo or Revit, or programs like ArcGIS mapping, anything that's very graphically intensive, we brought up a virtual desktop environment in the cloud. You're using a product called Nutanix, which is a virtualizing software or company, and what they utilize is different cloud platforms, right? They use Azure, or they can use the Google platform, and or Amazon, to run and get access to the computing resources. So our students, basically all they needed to, so it's GPU accelerated, that means it's high-end graphics. And students don't need anything except a browser, right? They can even do it from your own phone. I know you can't see much on the phone, if you're trying to open up a CAD package, but that's doable, right? And you can get a CAD package that would be extremely intense graphically and keep moving it on your cell phone, which would be impossible even on the laptop, right? It basically becomes like a disposable computer, right? You log into it, you do your work, then you log out. Of course, there's cost associated with that thing, but it was something that came in very handy for some of our very intense applications. I may be able to even show you, I don't know if I still am connected, or, I could, maybe I just closed it. Anyway, so that one was very useful to us. So academic software, so the other thing was that we had to reconfigure how we distributed software, because a lot of the software vendors do not allow software to be installed on students' PCs and laptops and whatever. They all want it to be on WPI controlled hardware because of the licensing issues and how it gets used, right? So we had to negotiate with all of them to be able to add, to get them to allow for students who have poor connections at home, or to be able to install these software, or then to be able to use it in a way that would be useful to them, right? And so we did that. That was also a big time, and that was very a difficult negotiation, right? That we had to go through, but it also proved very very useful. And also, usually we had all these one-on-one people, but the support for students and faculty. But now, since everybody's online, so we had to reconfigure it. So with using Zoom and other things, We got invited students to join our sessions, share desktops with them to see their models, what was happening, and be able to, so we had to reconfigure ourselves to also help the students, because they're going to need more help when they're remote than when they're in person here. In person at WPI, we had a lot more services, and by being remote, it's very much limited, and the more help they could get, the better off they were. So I'll come to the favorite topics of mine is the academic labs. Even though we are not, as a part of the IT, is like very much too much involved in academic labs. I saw that as one of the areas that when we went online last semester, some did well, some not so well. Our student experience with labs, right? And our whole focus is now how to improve that, right? To bring the level of the student experience. Okay, if they have physical access to the labs is one thing. What if they don't, right? And how we can improve the experience in some of the very difficult ones, like biology? How do you cell culture remotely? Chemistry, it's first year chemistry courses. What do you do when we have all these chemical experiments? Physics labs, introductory physics labs. How do you measure a field remotely, magnetic field? And so all of those things have been very much on our minds and trying to improve this summer. And we have developed some approaches. We had some older approaches. We're having some new ones, and we have some really futuristic ones that we are working on right now. So some of the departments that did really well is our electrical and computer engineering department moved their labs online, and they were using software such as LabVIEW and Multisim that belongs to National Instruments, right? I will get into that a little bit later. Mechanical engineering department, experimentation lab, we had, those are, every student takes it. Those labs are always busy. And so suddenly now they can't be in the lab and use, all the data acquisition cards and, every other sensors that they were using, they can't do that anymore. So what they did was they used, what we did was we shipped them the kits, which is basically the price of a book, but it had systems like a Raspberry Pi, a microprocessor, an Arduino, microcontroller, and using thermocouples and other things, they could measure force, torque, strain, motion, all done at home or in the dorm. This all can be done. There's instructional videos all associated with that, how to do this, how to do that, how to measure. And once you collect the data, do all the analysis, and then send it in your homework, right? Or you can show on the video to the faculty how do you putting this together and what you're experiencing. Are you successful? Whatever mistakes you are, now it can be corrected, right? That proved to also be very successful. And that was one thing. Back to the electrical and computer engineering, labs. This is a typical our labs. You can see oscilloscope. There's an analog board, digital boards, and all kinds of circuits. And how do we do all of this online? So you can see now Multisim. Multisim, National Instruments spend a lot of time and effort to creating these physical instruments into virtual instruments. Like this oscilloscope that's online and it's virtual is exact copy of what we have in the lab, right? It does the same exact thing. All the functions, the buttons are the same, right? So a student can use all of that to design their circuits, right? And once that happens, and like this is a typical circuit that was designed in Multisim, right? And after you got all the physical, and then all the measurements were done, you use the oscilloscope, you use the function generators, everything else, then you come up with your circuit, and then you put your circuit, and actually this is the physical circuit they developed in the lab. And if you don't get the same answers from the physical, and then you made a mistake, because this one, the digital one, is really correct. Okay, so you must have made some mistake when you put the analog parts, together, right? And these two have to match, because this has been proven to be very exact. That's one way of reinforcing and teaching, and and is now prevalent through the electrical and computer engineering department to use this particular software for online courses or even in-house courses. It's invaluable to student experience. So some of the, for example, the projects that we're currently working on, right? You know, we have, I give you an example, is the Chemical Engineering Unit Operations Lab. So this lab is a 3-story lab. It's a big giant lab with all kinds of instruments. It basically shows you how to use, how to do theory, you know, how to match theory to practice in chemical engineering. How do you, how do you understand big problems and solve bigger problems? So the course is a combination of lectures and projects, laboratory projects, and includes like experiments in fluid flow, friction conduits, filtration, pressure drop, impact towers, fluidization of solids, and spray drying, right? And all the seniors in chemical engineering have to take this course, right? And this fall they have to do it. But now we are faced with that it either could be online or it could be in a hybrid model that the number of students in the lab are limited. They can, because of the 6 feet distancing and social distancing and wearing masks, only a limited number of students can be at the lab during one time. So for example, this is one of the lab experiments. This is a fluid flow measurement. There's all kinds of, controllers and, flow, you see the pipes, and then you have this, I don't know if you can see it well, in the upper right corner, there's a displays where it shows, all the measurements, so students normally come in 4 at a time and start working on this project. They move the things that they're supposed to, they measure from the meters, and they see what and then they do their analysis. But now they're limited. They can't be in the lab more than 1 or 2 at a time. So right now, as an intermediate solution, what we are trying to do is, we are putting cameras, on these experiments. Then one student comes in, and the other students are online, and looking through the cameras, talking to the student in the lab, one of their teammates, and they're telling them, okay, open this valve, close this valve, read these measurements, and and then they can switch later on. So it becomes interactive, right? That's an intermediate step that we are doing right now. The later on, I will explain to you that we are working with more advanced, which goes into the virtual reality and augmented reality, where it involves HoloLenses, headsets, either a TA or a professor in the lab looking at the instruments, and students participating fully in the lab experience while they're remote. Similar efforts are underway for other academic departments such as physics, chemistry. We're trying to really ramp up that part of our portfolio. So as I said, very basic level, once we went online, very basic level was that some of the labs that students couldn't get into because campus was closed, was one of the faculty to videotape the experiments. And then right, the one that we are working now, and that one is an easy intermediate step. Experiments is going on, and faculty is recording it, and then at some point the video stops, and the students have to make a choice which way to go, either select A or B, and faculty provide these stops because they know this is where the students usually make mistakes, right? So they allow them to pick A or B and then follow a different video downwards. Either works fine or there's an error, and that's pretty much interactive, right? But our ultimate goal is be fully immersed and using a faculty as a HoloLens, and it develops the material that a 3D virtual reality material that then can be viewed by students either synchronously or asynchronously later on, and even that material can be viewed through a browser, an app. Doesn't have to be another headset, even though for full experience, that would be ideal, but you know, we didn't want to burden the students with additional expenses, right? So we are currently have bought the latest generation of Microsoft HoloLenses too as a developmental platform. I'm just going to show you a quick video of what Case Western University is doing in an anatomy class, and we are trying to do the same thing for some of our labs and classes. Please tell me if you see this.
We've been teaching human anatomy the same way for 100 years. Students get a cadaver, then they look at medical illustrations, and it's completely two-dimensional, and the human body isn't.
Microsoft HoloLens is a holographic computer that you wear. It enables you to bring your digital world into your real world.
At Case Western Reserve University, we are focused on solving problems and creating new knowledge.
My job is to teach, and I really think this could impact almost everything that we teach people. With HoloLens, you can see the muscles on top of the skeleton all at the same time. You can bring them in and out and exactly understand where things sit.
You can take any anatomical part and show any of it. You can move it around, you can make it kind of translucent so you can see through the outside, and that really helped me understand like how cardiac anatomy worked. I actually had a moment where I found the aortic valve, and it was the first time that I'd actually seen the aortic valve in relation to all the other anatomical structures. You know, it was a way of seeing it that you couldn't do with an actual heart.
I think this will improve students' confidence in learning anatomy dramatically.
By creating simulations with the HoloLens that lets them have an experience where they can fail, that would be the best way to learn, because we don't allow people to fail too much in real life medicine.
With HoloLens, you could imagine having a class standing around a model, almost like a tour group in a museum, where they're all interacting completely naturally. I spend a huge amount of time to make sure they become the best professionals, because it's all of our jobs to make the world a better place.
Working with Case Western Reserve University to create this paradigm shift so that we can leap together with students into the future of education.
So
we believe that,
you know, there's a lot of commercials, but there's other links here whenever you want to look at it. But we do have them. We bought 6 of them now, and our students and faculty are experimenting with them now. And I'm hoping to have some very exciting, you know, developments pretty soon using these technologies, which, you know, a lot of most people are visual learners, and these would be ideal platforms to learn. Now, just quickly go through the high performance computing before I finish. Thank you for your patience. We have, as I said, we have major compute clusters, both for teaching and research on campus. They consist of thousands of CPUs and hundreds of GPUs, you know, and then we teach them, faculty and students from all across, all disciplines. It's open to everyone. They come in and, you know, engage in doing the homework, research, even sponsored research, you know, everything. We support all of that. And we offer them training sessions, how to use these resources. And basically there's a lot of hand-holding. And this proved to be, you know, a really good, you know, opportunity for us because of the COVID, and all campus was closed. But campus being closed had no effect on our computational resources, right? Because everybody could access them remotely through a secure shell connection, which is very low bandwidth, is persistent. They can come in, start a big job, and then log off, and then go away and come back and check when that job is done, right? And so actually we saw, because the students could not work in wet labs and physical labs, a lot of our, you know, heavy duty people started working in the computational side of things during the you know, last semester and also this summer. We saw a lot higher activity level. And one of the reasons we opened this up and have these resources is that we want to give our students additional skills, you know, especially in the area of data mining and data analytics. That's almost important in every field that you work on these days, right? You need these data analytics tools and skills. And we want to provide that to our students, you know, as many unique skills as possible. this is okay. This is the last line, and this is my personal opinion for whatever it's worth, which probably is not worth very much. Key takeaways. I see my role as creating environment and providing resources for faculty and students to succeed. As I always tell the faculty and students, I can't make you succeed, but at least I can provide you the environment where it gives you a chance to succeed. And I think that's the most important thing any administrator can do. And the goal is to give, at the end of the day, the goal is to give every student every chance to develop additional unique and marketable skills for the present future, because they're going to be competing in a global environment. It's not like I'm going to go work for a company next door for 40 years. Those days are gone, right? And in the era of globalization, where you're competing with, engineers and programmers in India and China and Russia, these skills come in very handy, right? And might give you a competitive edge. With that, thank you for your patience. Thank you for listening to my rant. And Joe, if you have any questions, please.
I definitely wouldn't call it a rant, and I would say that that is the general consensus on YouTube and in the Slack channel, that everyone's very appreciative for what you just presented. So there were several questions, and you and I discussed it a little bit before. It came out of the previous few days, but again during your presentation. And that really is around online labs, so virtual labs. There are some specific questions about overcoming the challenges associated with physical labs like chemistry. So things that were in specific disciplines, like how can synthesis of a compound be designed in chemistry using a virtual lab. I don't know if you have any more thoughts about those specific types of questions.
Right. So when it comes to that, those are very complex questions. We're trying to get at the beginning, we're working on getting our introductory labs online, and then we go into the more advanced ones, right? So we're building up our skills, our online skills. All the universities, even here in the United States, are struggling with this. Nobody has a, great solution, that if it did, that would, I remember during the last semester, I used to get calls from other universities like, oh, how are you guys handling science and engineering labs? Because we're struggling with it, right? So that's a general struggle. And, but a lot of universities, just like us, we are working on these solutions because we know the new normal, which is, is going to be partly online, might be with us, probably will be with us for a very long time. So all these things have to be solved, right? So we are actively working on it. And hopefully within the next few months, I'll have more answers, right? But I don't want to give away any trade secrets yet.
Yeah, that's actually, something that came up in the days prior as well, is that it's still it's a rapidly changing field, right? It's a rapidly changing set of problems to be addressed, and then with addressing those new problems, there's new discovery, and so in some of the things that you're talking about, not specifically about the university-wise, enterprise-wide infrastructure. We're talking about the difference between planning for today, planning for tomorrow, and planning for what's next. And I think, like in your presentation, you were kind of discussing all of those things, from solving the problems that were related to the immediate problems related to transitioning due to COVID, and then thinking about HoloLenses and AI environments, virtual reality environments. Yeah. One thing that came up, again, this is related a bit to the online labs, is around like practicums and experiential learning. Do you have any thoughts or any work that you've been doing to support those sort of using tech for the real world to facilitate real world engagement?
We do support, a lot of our projects, involve, especially, let's just say we have the major qualifying project for undergraduate students. A lot of it's funded by companies, right? Trying to solve real world problems, right? The company has an issue and funds WPI students to solve some of those issues, right? Same thing with masters and PhD. A lot of that is happening, right? That a lot of companies fund us trying to find, instead of them hiring a group of scientists and engineers, they basically outsource it to us, right? And so what we see from some of these projects is the same thing, is like, okay, we're trying to create a medical instrument, some faculty are doing, designing new ways of doing prostate surgery, using robots, right? And there's a slew of that, we're partnering with, companies and, government, and it's prevalent. WPI is a big player in that, right? We have the photonics lab, we have the, other labs that are all the partnership between the government, private sector, and academia.
And actually from that, it's related to a question that just came in, actually, was related to partnership with technology providers, both service providers and physical product providers. They're wondering, in particular around mini servers or the data center, are those, do you enter into partnerships with these companies to stand these things up?
Well, maybe on a more advanced technologies, because when it comes to servers and, basically the server room infrastructure, it's basically has turned into commodity, right? And the move now is more into the cloud, right? If I was designing a university from the scratch, I probably would not have anything in-house, right? The reason we have a lot of things in-house, on premise, is because of all the legacy things that we have over the past 40 years in information technology we've developed. But if you're trying to build something new, there's a lot of cloud resources that are available that, okay, you pay per use versus a capital investment. Now it's operating versus capital investment. But I think that would be the way to go, right? Because all those services are persistent and they're offered in the cloud through multiple vendors, and they could compete with each other. The prices are always coming down, right? Versus what you could do, because we have a massive, infrastructure already at WPI. For us, it's much more cost effective to have a lot of things in-house. But at some point, that would not be the case. And that would be in the cloud. So for example, my compute cluster, these are gigantic. But at some point, we're not going to be adding to it much more. What we're going to do is we're going to call it what we call a cloud burst. Once some faculty comes to me and goes, see, I need 10,000 CPUs for 2 weeks because, the project deadline is approaching. I need to do it. So there's no way that we could handle that, by purchasing and installing and configuring, right? But we have that capability now to burst into the Amazon or, Google Cloud and use those CPUs for the amount of time. Of course, there's charge for it because of the charge per minute or, whatever type of CPU that you use, but that also can be done. So without, at some point, that price will be cheaper than what we can buy and install in-house.
I think that's a good segue into something that's kind of the elephant in the room, which you and I had talked about it in our discussion, and it's been coming up really since the beginning, is that, so it's questions about cost, questions about in the Nigerian context, there are questions about, well, this all sounds great, but and we see where we need to go, but what are some of the sort of decisions that, to be made in the moment to kind of set Nigerian universities on the path towards developing these capabilities? You sort of touched upon it about not having the trend going to not have, things physically on campus, but based in the cloud. Are there, if you put on your hat and pretended to be the director of IT services for one of these universities that are being represented here, are there any suggestions on things that you would do within those constraints?
Right, so I'm not very familiar with the networking infrastructure, the internet, access to all the universities, and also what kind of a pipeline is coming into the country, how's the access, how's the internet access at home. for students? Is that decent enough? What is the cell phone coverage? Is it 4G? Is it 3G, 4G, LTE? Is there plans to go to 5G? You know, because that would be the game changer, right? If, you know, here, I know when 5G, even for us, you know, comes into my area, that will change things dramatically, right? About how we do networking, about how we access resources, because suddenly you have this extremely high-end network at much higher bandwidth, at much higher low latency, which is 5G. And it has to be, you know, prevalent because the signal doesn't travel that far. So it has to be saturated, right? So, you know, pretty soon that might make all kinds of networks obsolete, right? So I would look into investment into those kind of future technologies because, you know, and especially from, you know, I would put my government hat on because I would say, okay, that would tremendously stimulate the economy, right? Makes things available to companies and things that will not be, that's not possible now. And when the when that economic boom happens, the universities are going to be the first beneficiaries because of the additional funding and whatever. So, you know, that would help the university model because if the country is successful, the money will flow into the universities and workforce development. But without, so I always say people are more important than technology. You have to be able to enable the people, you know, and that you need to provide them the infrastructure, which is the networking, power networking, all those things have to be in place. Otherwise, it's going to be very limited, right? The growth.
I think that's actually, yeah, please.
Yeah. To add to the conversation, I think that's why this is such a fabulous opportunity, working with NgREN, which I know is a program within the National Universities Commission, but this opportunity to work as a block, right? As you interact with local industry and you're doing negotiating, I think that this is a great opportunity to try to get the infrastructure in place in a way that works and leverage the large number of universities that are working to achieve that same goal, which would be, I think, a lot more challenging if it was a one-off here and a one-off there, right? Working with the different providers. So hopefully that's something that, you know, the fact that we have close to 100 universities, I think, signed up. Hopefully that will be to their advantage to be able to work together and leverage you know, the relationship with the National Universities Commission to build that backbone. And like Sia said, they don't have to hopefully work as much with legacy or older systems, but can start from the ground up, looking at the newer, more agile computing options.
Right, absolutely, because, you know, we are, you know, sometimes it can be a drawback to have a, you know, legacy infrastructure like we have here, because we have to carry everything forward and make sure everything is backward compatible.
Yes.
But at some point, even in China, they're ditching the old platforms and going straight to 5G.
Yeah,
right?
so it can be a real advantage that you haven't had a strong infrastructure up to this point, because it can be like a lead weight that you have to kind of carry around and support. And you won't have to do that.
Right.
Yeah, and actually with some of the things that were coming in was a question specifically about creating an environment to provide resources for faculty and students to succeed. And I kind of want to tuck that into the theme that actually has been existing across all of this. And quite frankly, it's one of the things that I love about WPI, and it was clearly present in your presentation as well, is that the question is not about, it's not, the focus is not on the tech, it's on solving problems for people and putting them in positions to be able to do amazing things. And so, you know, that was, I know that was throughout your presentation, but the question specifically was about, you know, how do we create an environment, provide resources for faculty and students to succeed?
Right. Yeah. You know, I'm sometimes slow on the uptake, but I figured this out a while ago that if students and faculty are successful, then I'm successful. So that's my main job, is that if the students and faculty, especially the faculty, succeed, then it means the students succeed. And if the students succeed, then the university is successful, then we are all successful, right? And so the key has to be, enabling and providing resources and creating an environment where talented people, and there's a lot of talented people across the globe, but just that some of them do not have access to the environment and the resources, right? I don't know if Bill Gates would have been successful if he wasn't born in the United States, right?
Yeah.
Right. So those are the things that we're trying to do.
Yeah, and that comment actually made me think of something. There's some more technical types of questions that I'll get to in a second, but thinking about, the way that you're talking about it is, it's almost like being in service to faculty and students, in the sense that the infrastructure, the systems that you create will help them, and then in turn that makes you successful in your job. What are the ways in which you sort of you get to understand their needs? Did you set up like any types of official systems and processes so that you have contact with faculty and students to be able to receive that input, to be able to make those decisions? Right.
Since several things. That's a very good question. So one thing that we've done is that my office and my team is based in an academic building. So I see a flow of students and faculty. I'm not in an administrative building where I don't see any students and faculty, right? That's the first one, is that we're in an academic building, so I can feel the ebb and flow of academics. I talk to all the students and faculty, and they walk into my office, and then after a while I see patterns emerging, right? And then I'm also the direct contact between IT and the academic departments, deans, and the provost. And so I interact with them about their strategic planning. So I can talk to a Department of Chemistry head and what their vision is for the next 5 years. Then I talk to the physics, and then I see emerging patterns, and then I talk to the deans about what their goal is to take the university to. And then whatever I see, I can try to create a picture of what the commonality is that I can support, right? And then start planning to put those resources into place to be able to have these departments, realize their vision.
Right. So the idea that it's not as if this is a closed box. It's not a set of stuff that's delivered to you and it's just there, you're done. It's a constant dialogue, constant thinking, work, collecting data, testing out solutions, getting feedback, and planning and evolving. Yeah.
And also my staff teach classes as well, right? And they advise students. So we're always getting feedback. It says, okay, my experience in class was this, or this part didn't work well, or I want to improve this, or I'm thinking of this new service, right? And then, oh, the students, there's this common problem with this group of students. Okay, how do we address that, right? So we respond to faculty and students, feedback, and we try to solve these problems. Sometimes I see gaps where, maybe people don't complain, but after talking to people, I see where some of these services are needed. For example, 3D printing. That's something that's normally not in IT, but I noticed that did not exist at WPI. And so through some extra budget and one of my staff has expertise in it, we started developing a center, and then suddenly it became very prevalent. Now we have a maker space at WPI with a whole slew of printers that's available to all students with hands-on. So some of those things, as soon as you see a need, it may not be in your own area, but if you want to help the university, then that's where you look at.
Switching gears, quite a bit. There was a question specifically about network security. So around sort of the issues to consider with providing all of these different services to so many different stakeholders, students, faculty, staff. you know, what are, I guess, strategies? What are the types of software? How is it that you think about it and try to solve for it?
So yeah, so we have you know a lot of our services are behind VPNs, and we have for some of the services that are more sensitive, we have multi-factor authentication turned on. So every time you log in, you have to get a code on your cell phone and input that so that your session, even if your password gets compromised, then nobody can get into your account if they don't have your cell phone number, right? And they can access to your cell phone or your some separate email, right? So we put in security measures in some, but that also has to balance, right? So balance between, you know, what are the administrative systems? You know, our administrative systems behind multi-layers of security, right? We handle payroll and information and social security numbers and sensitive data. Our storage arrays are severely protected where all the data reside. But if the students have accessing like remote terminal service to do their homework, that's a different level of security. And you know what we want to do is want to balance that between security and accessibility. If you make it too difficult, and you know then the students have to jump through hoops, then you defeat the whole purpose. But you also want to make sure that if somebody gets a server gets compromised, then it doesn't propagate and cascade from there. Internally, we have next generation firewalls. We have Palo Alto security tools. So we invest tremendous amount of money into firewalls and security tools to monitor traffic, unusual activity, access that should not be. All that stuff is monitored on campus and from remotely.
I guess that's what I think this question slides into that discussion a little bit. It is around security, but it's around remote proctoring and other types of assessment tools. I know that that was something that Kate discussed a little bit yesterday. I don't know if there's anything that any thoughts you have on that or anything to add. Right.
I mean, the sessions that we offer is not for credit, it's training sessions, right? So, but there's quizzes so students can evaluate themselves, right? So I'm hoping that people don't cheat themselves, right? So, those are, if you really want to learn, you really want to learn, right? So there's nothing here that is going to make give you a grade or something. And I think I never encountered an issue with that. A lot of students were talking, what we do also that I forgot to say is that a lot of our people take our training and then at some point get a certificate, right? That they're a professional in the use of like SolidWorks. So when our students during the summer internship, they're trying to get jobs with companies and other things, this will help tremendously when they have had exposure and they're experts in MATLAB and SolidWorks and other, that helps them get a summer job. And also, usually those summer jobs always lead to future employment. And also train them about what the company would need, right? So the more exposure you get to what the real work environment is like, the better off you are.
Actually, at this moment, Carrie, do you have any questions or anything that you'd want to add?
No, I think this is excellent. Thank you, Sia. I loved seeing the HoloLens. That was fabulous.
Well, that's I'm telling you, once we go fully 5G, and these devices they're getting cheaper all the time, right? And at some point, they're going to be prevalent, and not only in academia, but it would be in sports, it would be in entertainment, right? And I always say, just imagine you put the headset on and you feel like you're sitting at the football stadium, right? And or a basketball game, and you're actually looking through somebody's 3D camera. You feel like you're at courtside, right? All those things will be coming.
So I guess that's part of what I'm thinking about when these universities are talking about resources. It's certainly a viable concern. Their resources as institutions, the resources available to their students, whether they have access to computers or laptops or tablets or even just cell phones, and then the internet and power. So those are all viable concerns. What would you say would be the most important thing to invest their effort in for infrastructure? Would it be the 5G? Like in terms of
Right, the
getting a stable
networking.
environment? Like, so, and I mean, because if you have, I mean, if I'm hearing you correct, I think what you're saying is if you have the 5G, you don't have to worry about investing in other areas because the 5G will give you the capacity then to do the learning without the physical resources in the same way. Is that true? Am I hearing you right?
Well, you have to bring in the pipes from outside access to the internet. But if you build the 5G internally, you also enable internal, collaboration, right? Your students, wherever they are. And what happens is that, once you increase bandwidth, all the things that, remember with 3G, we had only access to text and email. With 4G, suddenly you could do online shopping, right?
Okay.
Imagine what that enabled. Now, when you go 5G, that's 100 times more bandwidth,
Okay.
sometimes to 1,000 times more bandwidth, right? And imagine what new industries, what new capabilities that would enable, right? The whole
Now
new
that's going to
industries
be
will come.
so it's going to be a key for industry, and that segues nicely into our discussion for tomorrow. Mike Ahern is going to be talking about industry.
Friday.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
Friday.
Yeah.
Thank you. And so he'll be talking about that, not only in terms of training industry, but also working with industry, because we're going to be also needing to address issues related to the reliability of power, right? And so that's something that will have to kind of be negotiated. And so I think thinking big picture again, how to leverage those relationships, right, will be
The
important.
number one thing is infrastructure. You have to increase the bandwidth in the country or to the universities, and or make it adequate enough for some of these things to be, for students to be at faculty to be enabled to be able to do some of these things, right? Because if you give them that, I'm sure they can succeed, right? But that infrastructure has to be there for them, and that's the most important thing, right?
So if they only have 3G currently, and you say that they can text and they can email, what can they expect to do for September, like realistically?
That's depends on, well, you know what, as I always said, people are more important than technology. Before,
How do you lay the groundwork?
and as Kate mentioned, we've been doing this for 40 years, and 40 years ago there was no internet, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
what do we do with online education? We used to send out VHS tapes, right?
Yep.
We used to send those CDs, then it changed to DVDs, then it changed to, maybe right now you send out a USB key, with 20, 40 gigabyte of, information on it, right? So, good people will come out with solutions, right?
Excellent. Yeah.
So the easiest would be to, of course, for me sitting here would say, go ahead, upgrade your network, but, that's, that's a key, because when you put smart people and good people together and enable them, they will come up with solutions that will support you, right?
So it sounds like what I hear you saying is that it's a dual effort, right? That you're aiming for the larger infrastructure upgrades, which will take some time, and in the meantime, put people together and come up with short-term solutions that will get you what you need, while you're also moving in the direction of a larger vision.
Yes, and also one important thing: always listen to your faculty, right? You get some of the smartest people in the world, consult them on everything, right? Because they're gonna come up, at WPI over the last 40 years, all these great programs, robotics, data sciences, biomedical engineering, the WPI plan, all the project-based, everything has come from the faculty, right? So it's very important to, when you have all these smart people in the world come together, to consult them and ask their opinion and make them stakeholders and have them come up with solutions, right? And, have them be a stakeholder in the process and sharing the design and, implementation, and, and that will succeed.
So stay open, make sure you include all your stakeholders, be creative, don't get discouraged if it's not what you think it should look like right from the get-go, and continue moving forward, because this is the way of the future.
I'll also chime in a little bit on this idea as well, is that, what you're laying out also is that, innovations, there's an opportunity to leapfrog in terms of instead of simply adopting existing solutions. There's a chance if there are limited financial resources, there's a chance for discovery and invention of things that are actually meeting the needs of the people that you're trying to serve. In the case for UCIA, it's around faculty, students, and being able to innovate, in that way. And so when it comes down to thinking about, I put on my agile product development hat, and I think about who it is that I'm trying to deliver something to, whose needs am I trying to serve, how am I going to do that the most effectively, and then what's the cheapest way to get started before making any kind of investment, serious investment in out of the box technologies or anything like that.
No, well, you assess what you have, you assess what you have and what you need, right? What are your resources, human resources? What do you have? And then what kind of constraints you have financially? What you have constraints infrastructure wise, right? And if you're good enough, then you should be able to work around those to be able to come up with some innovative solution. Who do you partner with? Maybe you don't have to create everything yourself.
Yep.
Maybe you can partner with that has some of these expertise. Maybe have some can share some of this stuff with you.
Yep.
And while you move up to another level, right?
Yeah, that's great. So really changing gears here, so there was because of the lag in the video, some comments come up after things have been already discussed or presented. So there was comments, and this is around the ideas of innovation, the role of online education versus more traditional face-to-face in-person education. And so there's some concerns. I'm kind of summarizing several different comments, but some concerns about elimination of jobs, elimination of online will be the way that everything is done. So what are your thoughts in this kind of domain of?
Yeah, I hear that all the time here too. It's not something that just concerns. Okay, I gave my lectures, I'll record it, then they don't need me anymore, right? No, but that's not the case, right? Because what we found out that students overwhelmingly, parents are calling us right now saying that no, we want our students to have in-person experience, even though we have a very good online presence, right? They say we want our students to have an in-person experience. Okay, there's nothing is going to replace that in-person experience, but the online material is going to be extremely important, not only for students that cannot come or can afford to come, or maybe we get different price point, whatever we talk about, but also for in-person students. You're sitting at home, 11 o'clock at night, there's a test tomorrow, and you say to yourself, I wish I could listen to the faculty's lecture, the 2 lectures that were before this, so I could remember some of that stuff. That happened to me as a student. It happens all the time, right? So all those will be available to you. So you could go and look at the lectures again and be reminded, or, you understand, then the faculty looking at some lectures, say, okay, this particular lecture, this particular topic was viewed 500 times, the other ones once. Why, right? Maybe this area needs more concern. I have to concentrate on this. This is a problematic area. A lot of people don't raise their hands in class to ask questions, but they may go multiple times looking at a video trying to understand something that they couldn't understand the first time, right? So I found out that lecture capture and all these other things have become extremely good tools, even for the students who are here in person. So I don't think it's going to be online. I don't think is a job killer.
So that's interesting. It's somewhat of intersects with my field and looking at education futures and education innovation. And if you look through the history of, you think about innovations, major innovations and transformations, there was always concern that introduction of some new technology is going to completely crush jobs, eliminate work, all of those things. And what we find is that it alters them, and it might it might change or eliminate some roles. It might force people into other types of related work. But I think of it for myself in the classroom is that it actually changes the way that I teach a bit, in that I don't, if certain things can be automated, then I don't have to worry about it. I don't waste my time focused on these sort of menial tasks, and I have a renewed focus on building relationships with my students, thinking about innovative ways to deliver content, skills development. And so some of the stuff frees me from the other, sort of traditional aspects of an instructor's job. One of the other things too is like, this would not even be possible. Us being able to deliver a 2-hour lecture and ongoing engagement with almost 1,400 people in Nigeria at 90 to 100 different universities would not be enabled without this technology. So the ability to facilitate different types of engagement and rethinking types of roles that we have, I think is part of that as well.
Right. Sometimes some lectures, okay, you give that lecture all the time, or maybe another faculty does a much better job of explaining that theory, right? So, but your class time then can change, like a flipped classroom. It can be when you can concentrate on how that's applied, or you concentrate on areas that, the theory doesn't cover. So the in-person experience becomes somewhat different than, just having to turn your back on the students and explain you the theory on the blackboard or whiteboard for 50 minutes, right?
I think that's a
Absolutely.
great point, Joe. I think that point that you bring up about kind of the attitude that we bring, right? We're all we're kind of being forced into this, right? We're moving in that direction. We were moving in that direction anyway, but we're really being forced by the COVID-19 situation to take it on much faster than some people would have normally. And so it's not going to be perfect, right? As you roll out, and it's not going to be the same as what existed before, but you can look for opportunities, right? That you said wouldn't exist, right, without the technologies that we have. And this concept that you're talking about of how it changes things and how professors will not be obsolete, but their roles might change. We talk a lot about the future of work and the worker as being a global grand challenge that we talk about at WPI, and one that we're embracing along with other global concerns. And so this is part of that, right? What does work look like? How do we prepare the workers of the future? And how will work change for professors and lecturers and things like that? And I think, again, staying flexible, and just because it's not what it was before doesn't mean that it's bad. That to expect that it will be different, and that there will be maybe some drawbacks, but there will be a lot of benefits as well.
So one thing that we noticed is an interesting factor that I'm going to, for whatever it's worth, after each course, before the course is over, we send students to an evaluation of the course and the faculty, right? And the same thing true is for the online. So what we notice is that the faculty who did a great job in person and got high scores, when they went online, even if they've never done online, the scores remain high. They did a pretty good job online.
Yeah, so it's really the principle. It's about pedagogy. It's about being a good instructor, and it's the tech that can facilitate it, but it can be good online. So those same things that make you a good teacher in a face-to-face environment are going to make you a good instructor online.
It's a great point.
Absolutely.
Great point.
So I actually just want to pause for 1 second and say, so there are a lot of questions coming in about pedagogy. And I think I'm going to save those. I'm not ignoring your questions. I'm capturing them, and I'm saving them for tomorrow's discussion. So that's one that's going to be, it's going to be all about teaching online, and so I'll address those there. But there is a question that is it's a change from what we were just discussing, and the question comes from YouTube, and it's oh, that's not the question. This one, yeah. So the concern is about older faculty members. So what the question is how can older faculty members fit into this high technology sort of plan transition, kind of new reality? So, I take that to mean maybe for you thinking about how is it that you've designed systems with them in mind for support, training, kind of all of those things.
Right, support and handholding is we are a university that's high touch, not just for students, but also for faculty as well, right? And if they need something, there's a lot of resources and handholding that we do, especially for people who are suddenly, when older faculty are never taught online, suddenly are going online. Of course, they're going to need, training. Of course, they're going to need handholding. Somebody looking over their shoulder while they get their feet wet and, get acclaimed to teaching online. Yes, all those things are necessary. It's very daunting to suddenly, from going into class, and we've seen that during the last semester when, some of our older faculty, I would say that they were kind of, awed by the challenge, but I think they got over it very quick. They found out, though, these tools are not very different than going over to your lab and turning the computer on and bring a PowerPoint presentation. And, it's not that, you get used to it very quick.
And actually, I'll jump in. This is going to be a continued conversation tomorrow on this theme of supporting faculty. And I should say, the question said older faculty, but I'm not so sure that it can be a question of age, but it actually, that isn't always the case. So it's a question of comfort and sort of facility with technology.
Right, and then on campus, we have it's all the classrooms are multimedia enabled, right? So it's not like they went from accessing nothing. There's no faculty that have no computers in their office, right? So we had familiarity with technology, right? Now there are different levels. Some people feel a little bit more challenged by the newer technologies. Okay, how do I go into Zoom, and how do I do the things about sharing this and that, and all those things, and those are all workable. And we found out that they didn't provide much of a barrier, maybe in one or two cases. But then what we did, we assigned another faculty to that person to help them not only with the technology, but also maybe if they had the transferring their normal in-class material to an online format, right? Which sometimes is not easy for IT to do, but another colleague would be a much better resource.
Yeah, I actually was one of those people this past spring. I helped out a number of faculty in my department, try to gain, to be challenging them to think about, what are the objectives of the course? How is it that you can not only what might be the best way, but also what are you comfortable with? What are your strengths? What do you believe that you're able to do well? What's integral to your course? And then come up with a solution on how you can deliver it comfortably in the online environment. And so that we're going to talk more about that. Chris Demetri will be talking tomorrow about sort of building this faculty support network. Yeah.
Right. She would be perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. There are more questions about digital labs, but we spent quite a long time on that. There was a very specific question about budgeting process, and sort of the way that the underlying tech gets put into a budgeting process here in the US, but in particular, I guess at WPI. Do you have any thoughts or anything to share kind of around maybe thinking about how to budget for these tech investments?
Right, there's different formats, depends on where you are. Some are cost centers, right? Some universities are basically, they charge, for their services, and they charge grants and, departments and students, some even charge you for giving an IP address, right? And if okay, you have a server, okay, I house your server, I manage it, but it's going to be $2,000 a year or some whatever number it is. And what we do at WPI is couple of different things. Is that we do not charge people normally. We charge big requests. Suddenly somebody comes in and goes, for this particular project, I need involving bioinformatics, I need 100 terabytes of storage, right? Okay, that's something that's out of a normal sequence, and that has to be funded through a grant or some other, funding. But the normal funding that, usually we give every faculty minimum of 2 terabytes of enterprise level storage. Enterprise level storage is very expensive, because it's backed up every hour and it goes backed up indefinitely, right? So even if you wanted to lose data, you wouldn't be able to, basically, right? So, and then if you buy servers, we house them, we run it, we maintain it, and there's no charge. And if there's the universities in the United States also charge grants, overhead returns, and that overhead return goes into finance, and from there funds some of the more research technology, also funds some of the academic initiatives. And also the university, depending on, because we are heavily undergraduate tuition-based university, is that, the labs, everything else has to fall into that category that's being supported as part of the operating budget. But also we have a capital process where we make capital requests. We want this lab renovated. We needed additional instruments. We need more, software. All those go through the capital request. And once they get approved, then they get budgeted.
That's great. Thank you for that. So I'm scrolling through, and I think actually from yeah, I guess some of the other additional questions that are coming in are around costs, and so getting specific types of numbers around costs. There's still more about, I guess, the infrastructure discussion of the emphasis on 5G and sort of implications around its deployment.
Well, that's very important. If there's a plan in Nigeria, part of the government plan, to go in that direction, that would be perfect, because it will suddenly bring you up to par with Europe and the United States and Japan and China, right? Because that's what's going to happen. And if you're a below tier than that, you're never going to be able to, compete globally if the other people are staying ahead of you, at a different technological level, right? So.
Yeah, great. So actually a question just came in, and I am actually, I'm shocked that I did not address this, because I am a social scientist and I also have a humanities background. So the question is, we've talked a lot about sciences. So what are some of the things that are going on for humanities and social sciences?
Well, humanities, at WPI goes through, some of my biggest users are faculty in music. And, for example, when 5G comes, it's going to have, tremendous, some of the links, if you see, are going to be in arts and sciences, in plays, in, Shakespearean plays, or, other things that you can attend virtually, or you can see, there's a whole world of possibilities that the humanities faculty are very interested in once we go into the virtual reality environment.
Yeah, I mean, so I work in the global school, and I'm in charge of project centers in the Middle East and Africa. I'll be so presently in Namibia, one in Kenya, that will be started in the next year or so, and then in the Middle East in the United Arab Emirates, and we're looking to branch out elsewhere. And one of the things that we keep talking about, at least myself and the people that the other faculty members who work to prepare students, so our students, to be able to go to these areas and be proficient in the languages, culturally, the history, sort of all those different aspects, is that we're talking about the ways in which we might consider these emerging technologies and how we can better deliver that that preparation from a distance. So it's definitely something that we're thinking about as well in terms of language, culture, and those types of skills development.
Well, that's what happens, when you talk about, you go overseas for being immersed, right? It can happen virtually too. You can be immersed virtually, right? So, that could be a tremendous benefit into not only understanding, learning the language, but understanding other cultures.
Right. Let me just scroll to make sure I'm not missing anything. But I guess we are coming down to the wire on time as well. I don't know, Carrie, do you have anything that you want to bring into the discussion?
No, I think that you guys have covered a lot of territory. It looks like a lot of similar themes coming up in the questions. A lot of concern about infrastructure, a lot of concern about paying for it, and about the equity for student experience, right? That someone had mentioned that, that this ends up, and we're experiencing the same thing here in the US, right? In our public schools, that there's a divide between the haves and the have-nots, and it does seem to be exacerbated by, those students who have reliable power and access to the internet and tablets at home enough to provide for the number of children, right? Because our public schools were shut down for several months, and there's concern about the safety and the well-being of those students, and so we can relate to that. And that's why we have to bring in, it's not just your institution, but it's policymakers. It's partnering with industry. Like Sia said, if you get 5G in your community, then it's beneficial for industry. So for them to assist in that process is to their benefit. So how do you bring all the stakeholders together to make that happen so it's mutually beneficial for everyone? But it's something that you work toward. So you have the short-term goals and you work toward the longer-term goals, but getting all the players sitting at the same table is really important.
Yeah, great. I think there's just sort of one other question that came in, and it was about auto graders for programming courses. We're wondering, do we actually use any of those that you're aware of?
Not that maybe in the computer science department they do something, but I haven't really come across one.
So maybe that'll come up tomorrow.
I'm sure Kate mentioned there is some software that you use for online proctoring, but that's very intrusive, right? Down to a point of it giving you false internet links so that if you click on something, it will, if you turn your head, it thinks that you're cheating.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's too intrusive. It's like, I mean, what it comes down to, if you're a faculty and you're doing your job right, and you give a take-home exam and you make it open book, it's the same thing, right? As long as you designed it properly, then you'll know who did what, because the take-home exam with open book is the same thing, right? And I see the online, it's as the same thing.
So we're actually going to get into that tomorrow, talking about how we all think about assessment and how this has really there's a trend towards rethinking and reimagining what assessment is and the role of assessment in learning, and it is directly impacted by the changing nature of work. There are very few jobs now that require you to keep have memorized statistics and things in top of mind. It's the ability to search and find those resources and synthesize. So we'll be talking about that tomorrow.
Right, Joe. What I always tell WPI students is that what we do at WPI is we teach students how to learn, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to remember equation. You don't have to learn, all of that stuff can come back to you quickly, but how you train your mind to solve a problem, how do you learn how to learn, right? All those things are the most important things that we do, right? And coming to assessment, same thing we're doing with virtual labs, right? So we're trying to infuse all these different technology into the in-person labs, academic labs, but we still have to assess outcomes and see did the students really benefit from this technology, right? That's still a question. I think the answer is yes, but even then we have to still analyze that outcome and see, in person versus a hybrid model versus fully online, what are the outcomes, right?
Absolutely. I think that's a great place to end, actually.
And also, I just wanted to put one more plug in because I'm not sure, we have a lot of people on. I'm not sure if everyone's on the same page, but just a reminder that what we're doing this week is just phase 1, right? This is just to give an overview of what we hope to achieve in phase 2, which would be during the month of August. And so then we could delve further into these topics and get a little bit more information about what the individual scenarios are and come up with some strategies, so that we hope people are getting enough out of these that they're interested in coming back and continuing this conversation, moving toward longer term solutions.
Great. Thanks, Carrie. Some people are starting to ask, so that's good timing.
This is just the beginning. This is just the beginning. But every journey starts with the first step, right? So
yeah, that's fantastic.
Just the beginning, and we really hope that you will continue on this journey, and we would love to be on that journey with you.
Well, great. Well, thank you so much, Sia.
My pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for this outstanding presentation. The feedback that we're getting in is just how much everyone's appreciating, both the presentation and the question and answer session. To everybody that still watching, so I'm going to take the things that you've already written, and I'm going to start consolidating them into new questions and slide them into the existing questions and start having some areas for findings and things as well. But with that said, regardless of whenever you watch this video, please ask the questions that you have. Please contribute to the ongoing dialogue, discussion, raise points, because people are responding within the Slack platform, and we are all watching it as well, and can find other resources and answer your questions and continue to engage with you.
Yeah, and any questions that Joe I can answer, please. More than happy to.
Excellent. Fantastic. Take you up on that. All right. Thanks a lot.
Thank you,
care,
Joe.
everyone.
Thank you, Sia.
It was a pleasure. Thank you
Thanks
for the
for
opportunity.
everyone who's viewing today.
Thank you. Take care.
Take care.
Take care. Bye.